Hello, Bravo bosses, and welcome to the Bravo Investigator Podcast with me, your host, Dana. Today on the agenda for our reality roundup, we are talking about the secret lives of Mormon wives, The Valley, Love is Blind, Teen Mom, Summer House / Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, and Selling Sunset. Let's get into it. Happy Monday, everyone. I hope everyone had a good weekend, and happy Memorial Day to my American friends. So I just wanted to let you guys know that because it's Memorial Day, my media company is closed. So today's episode comes out on Monday via audio, meaning you can download it wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Amazon Music. And then tomorrow it'll come out on Hurrdat Entertainment's YouTube channel, okay? So you can listen to it today on Monday, but tomorrow on YouTube, you'll be able to grab it, watch the whole thing. So again, happy Monday. Hope everyone is having a great long weekend in the US. I got a long weekend last weekend. It was Victoria Day. And then this is your guys' long week. So I hope you guys are doing fun stuff. Today I'm excited about the episode because we're talking about a lot of stuff and not just Bravo. And of course I love Bravo, but I love when there's so many other things in the reality sphere to talk about. There's Love is Blind stuff today. There's Selling Sunset. So it's kind of exciting to, just be well-versed and well-rounded as reality TV connoisseurs, right, guys? Okay, so today we're going to start with The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, which we know season 2 came out last Thursday. I think it was May 15th. And the amount of drama that has come out of this show since, it's gargantuan to the point where honestly, I don't even think I have it all. So I'm going to tell you guys what I know, but it is a ton because they're doing so many podcasts and so many interviews. The girls are fighting constantly. So it's really hard to keep up with everything that's going on, but we'll try. So I actually wanted to start with Michaela Matthew on the squeeze. So I want to issue a trigger warning for this because there will be discussions of sexual assault. And I just thought this was a really important interview because the Squeeze podcast is the one with the Taylor Lautner and his wife, Taylor Lautner, but just his wife was doing this one. And I just thought this was a really important episode to listen to. Michaela really explains her childhood and her history with sexual abuse. And as someone who has worked with victims of abuse, this really spoke to me. Not in a positive way, obviously. It was very, very upsetting to listen to her talk about this, and it can be very triggering, even for me who hasn't experienced sexual abuse, but for somebody who worked with people who did. I find it so upsetting and so triggering, but also just really, really important. So I wanted to be able to talk about it with you guys today. So Michaela explained that she actually blocked out a lot of her childhood, so she doesn't even really have a lot of good memories. She does remember a lot of the bad, but not a lot of the good. And she actually grew up in Southern California, and her parents got divorced when she was young. So she was actually sexually abused by 3 different people. She didn't name 2 of those people, but one of those people was her mother's boyfriend. One of the people was when she was 6 or 7 years old, when she was still living in California. And she said that sort of moved over a little bit to when she moved to Utah with her mom after her parents got divorced. So when she said that it continued over when she moved to Utah, it made me think that it had to be someone in her immediate family, like a brother or sister. I know she had 7 siblings, including herself, and I think 1 younger brother. I mean, I don't really know. She only really talks on the show about 2 sisters and 1 younger brother, but there are 7 siblings in total. And at first I thought maybe it was like someone in the church because she was so young, but I think given the fact that it transferred over when they moved, it's just really upsetting to think that this could have been like someone who was living in her house. And then she moved to Utah, and then her mother got a boyfriend. And then from the time that she was 11 to 15, she was sexually abused by her mother's boyfriend. And this obviously started her sexual confusion. She mentioned something but didn't specify it, but said she would start to do things because she would start to recognize what would feel good. And then her mother would be like, stop doing those things. And again, she didn't say what those things were, but I've seen cases before, not cases of my own, but cases I've read online involving like child sexual assault, where children will sometimes start to touch themselves because that's what they start to deem as normal because that's what their abuser is doing and their abuser is telling them that it's normal. So that's actually a signal that a child is being sexually abused if they start to touch themselves because they don't know any different. So it's possible that that's what she was talking about here. She didn't tell anyone, and she said that her mom was never a safe space for her, and she always prioritized her boyfriend. Now, this really made me think of something that Heather Gay had said when she was talking about Brittany Bateman on the last season of The Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. She talked about how, it was very common in the Mormon culture to put your man above everything else, even above your children. And she said that it was something that she did. It was something that even Brittany Bateman did. And so it's possible that Michaela's mom, because the way that Michaela describes her childhood, it sounds like she and her siblings really had to fend for themselves, that her mother really wasn't there for them. They lived on their own for quite a bit. So basically, when she was 15, something that happened on Halloween, it was like a final straw for her, something that happened with the mother's boyfriend. And then the mother was like, "You're lying, that's not true." And it's just so sad because she finally had the courage to speak up. And instead of protecting her as her mom should have, her mom told her to move out. Now, nothing like this has ever happened to me, but I could picture myself in that situation. And I've told my mom things where she also didn't believe me and has also threatened to kick me out. And so I really resonated with her in that sense because I definitely saw a lot of similarities between my mother and her mother. And you can just see, like I said, throughout all of this, how much her mother is prioritizing, her relationship and her boyfriend over her own children. And it's, despite the fact that her mother maybe was not a person that she was just close to growing up, when it comes to something like this, that's when you have to just put everything aside and just be there for your kid, And it's clear that all the things that happened to her after that were a result of this. And I just wonder how her mother feels about that now. But anyways, so she ends up moving to a friend's house at 15 years old. She ends up being there for like a year, and right before she turns 16, she gets pregnant by Jace, who is her husband now. Now, when we watched season one of The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, I was a little icked by this because she got pregnant at 16. This guy is 21 years old. I'm like, this is kind of icky. But this guy ended up turning out to be like a really solid guy. I really, really like Jace from the way she describes him. So basically, she had to drop out of school. She didn't tell her friends, and basically, she dropped off the earth. And so just look at all the things that led or that happened after the fact, right? If her mother had just been there for her and not kicked her out of the house, and then she gets pregnant at 16, all of these things continue to happen to her, and her life sort of goes, in disarray when her mother could have been there to help support her and help sort of get her back on the right track. But all of these things happened because she literally abandoned her teenager. So she talks about going to a sexual trauma therapist, which I'm so happy that she did, who talked to her about this shame around sex in the Mormon culture because she ended up carrying this into her marriage, which I thought she would. I mean, when we talked about this last week on the Secret Lives of Mormon Wives recap, I was sort of thinking like, when she was talking about her assault and her skin issues, I'm like, are all of these things connected? And like, how can it not like lead to trauma in her relationship with her current husband? Because if she was being abused till 15 and then she gets pregnant at 16, did she even have a normal sexual experience prior to meeting her husband? Do you know what I mean? Like, so and especially when you're being sexually abused for so long, there's obviously so much negativity that's associated with it. So then to try to switch your brain to make it a positive thing and to do something that's for your pleasure when you've been doing something for so long that was for somebody else's pleasure only, it's a mind fuck and it's confusing and it's the kind of thing you would definitely need to go to therapy for. And she didn't like realize what was happening. So she's carrying it over into her marriage, but she doesn't understand. So sex becomes really triggering for her. And then she subconsciously starts resenting him because of it. And then he starts feeling rejected because he feels like, oh, my wife isn't attracted to me. So it's like this vicious cycle when that's not really what's happening. She's just, she's still so young herself, getting used to what she likes and what she feels comfortable with in her body. And she starts to feel guilty because she's, making her husband feel bad when again, all of this is just a byproduct of the horrifying sexual trauma that she experienced at the hands of so many people. And I mean, it does seem like she has a really nice life today. She has this amazing husband who she really describes as being very patient and very supportive in this experience, given that she even says she's never fully told him all of it. Like, she's never told him all of the physical sexual acts because it's just too difficult. And I don't even think she told him about a lot of the trauma until a couple of years ago. Like, he knew about her mother's boyfriend or knew about like some level of it, but not about the other stuff until a couple of years ago. And that was when her skin started getting really bad within like the last 3 years. Um, so her skin was getting so bad. She was in pain all the time. It was like really thin and it was tingling, which is something I can really resonate with. Like, I obviously do not have anything near the kinds of skin problems that she has, but I've definitely been in those situations where your skin is in such a horrifying place that you're in just so much pain and it's like tingling and vibrating and you just like you can't even sleep because you're in just so much pain. I have another friend who has really, really bad eczema, obviously not the same thing, but it's to the point where she can't even drive sometimes because she can't even like put her back against the seat or have a seatbelt on. That's how painful her skin is getting. She didn't even want to go out and she isolated herself a lot during season one because she was so embarrassed about her skin. That is also something I totally resonate with, especially like lately with podcasting, with having so many virtual meetings, with having to go into an office every Wednesday. I feel so embarrassed about my skin. I've like called in sick before because I've been too horrified to go to the office because I just didn't feel like I could cover up my skin. Again, I know this is like no level at what she's at, but I'm just trying to like make a comparison that like when you feel so incredibly disgusting in your own skin, literally and and figuratively, it can really impact your entire personality, how you feel about yourself, how you value yourself, right? So I can definitely resonate with that with her, and I'm glad that her skin is finally getting better, that she's finally getting help, because what a fucking nightmare to not really know what's going on with you, but yeah. To know that she's experienced all of this kinds of trauma, she's gone through so much in her life, it sort of makes sense that her body was physically reacting because she wasn't dealing with that trauma. She had never gone to therapy, she had never dealt with it. But yeah, again, I just want to say that, like, despite the fact that she might seem like she has this really great life now, she's got these three amazing kids, this amazing husband, this amazing career, she's still very troubled. She's still going through a lot. And I just think, I just don't. I mean, obviously, people don't sexual abuse people and think about what it's going to do to them in the long term. But I'm telling you now, it does so much to someone long term. Look how it's affecting Michaela's physical body. She happened to have found someone that is so like really kind and understanding and supportive of what she's going through, but she may not have. This could have affected her ability to ever be in a partnership because she may not have been able to trust men or trust people. It could have affected her ability to ever have children because she may not have ever felt comfortable having sex enough to have children. This could have affected her career. I mean, she could have ended up causing self-harm. There's so many other things that could have happened or may have happened. There's so much what we don't know about her, or just things that can happen to someone as a byproduct of sexual abuse. Because it is one of the most awful things that somebody can go through, and you never ever really get over it. You go to therapy, you do the work, and I'm not saying don't do the work. Obviously, do the work. It'll only help you, but it is just the kind of thing you carry with you for the rest of your life. And that's why I had to get out of that kind of work because it was just so depressing and upsetting to speak to women day in, day out about their trauma and not necessarily about things that had happened to them recently. Sometimes they're talking to me about something that happened 20 years ago or something that happened 5 minutes ago that triggered something that happened in them 20 years ago. You know what I mean? And I don't know. It was just a really interesting episode to listen to, so I highly recommend. But I also, like I said, trigger warning, and it is a very difficult episode to listen to. So if you are not in the mindset to be able to listen to something like that, especially with that subject matter, give yourself the space and the time and the peace to do so if you feel that is something you want to listen to. Okay, then I want to get into a lot of the drama that's just going back and forth between the girls. So basically, the cast did an interview with Entertainment Tonight last week, and they were talking about the Demi and Marciano situation, and she's saying that nothing happened on her end. He was definitely interested, but she didn't do anything. And then Jen was asked her opinion, and she was just like, well, I don't know. I was given a cease and desist. And Demi's like, no, you weren't. Pull it up, show the cease and desist, show it, show it. And she's like, well, I was told there was one. So I don't know. This whole weird thing was going on. It sort of implied that Demi had threatened the girls with a cease and desist, but hadn't actually given them one because Jen couldn't produce one. But this whole situation is just really bizarre. And then Jesse and Michaela were on the Vile Files talking about Demi. And as we just had discussed, Michaela has been through lots of sexual assault in her life on her own. And she said that because of that, she would never downplay something like that if she believed it to be true. And Jesse and Michaela felt like the allegations that Demi is making are not true. They felt that she sort of crossed the line when they were at Vanderpump Villa. I don't think like in a serious way. I think they just meant like she was being like way overly flirty. Um, but that's an interesting perspective because you have Michaela saying, I, as someone who has been sexually abused, I would never downplay something that somebody else has been through. So if it's coming from me, I feel like it speaks, a little bit more because I would never, not believe women. And that's the weird perspective that I'm coming from because I'm just like, okay, so Demi says that she was touched inappropriately or groped. That was the word that she used. And then you have all of her quote unquote friends not believing her and sort of supporting the other side, which is just so bizarre, not just for friends, but for women in general. And then we did have that weird scene in season 2 of The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives where um, Chase goes up to Demi and he kind of like touches her, but like in the hip, and he's like, "Hey, where's Brett?" And then she kind of sicks Brett on him, and she's like, "He touched me, he touched me." And now, did she overplay that situation? Probably. Like, she did not consent to him touching her, of course, but she sort of sent her husband after him and implied that he had touched her in like a sexual way. So is she capable of saying things and implying things that are sexual that are more than they are? Yes. However, just because a woman may overplay one thing doesn't mean that she's downplaying another, right? Just because I'm not saying not telling the truth, but just because one person may not tell the truth about one thing doesn't mean that they're not telling the truth about another thing. And we believe women. So I've just personally really struggled with this because, I believe women but you just have all of these signs pointing to the opposite direction. Now, if this all ends up being a complete storyline, I think that is so fucked up because I don't think sexual assault should ever come into a storyline or a game or to play for TV. That's not funny. It's not a joke. It's not something to make light of. So if this all turns out to be just a storyline, I'm like done with all of these people because I'm sitting here trying to figure out if I believe this woman, which I always do. Yet if it turns out that this is all just fake for TV, then I don't know, I'll just be pissed off. So the cast also, another like piece of tea they gave was that at the end of season 1, Demi actually wanted to pretend for a storyline to have an affair with Dakota. And all the girls were like, oh, that's super weird. Like, why would she bring that up? So Brett, her husband, has actually had a response to that. So he said online, "This whole thing is so blown out of proportion and ridiculous. Demi made a sarcastic suggestion while participating in a conversation that the producers asked about cast to have to brainstorm possible cliffhangers for season 1. All of the women were throwing out ideas. Another woman in the cast suggested that we should pretend like some of us are currently swinging. Most of the ideas suggested were far-fetched and said as a joke." So, okay. I mean, but again, we don't really have anyone else on Demi's side. I think it's just like Demi and Whitney. So, of course, her husband is backing her. I mean, this is really just tea. It's like not even that big a deal. Even if she did suggest it, it's weird for sure. But if her husband is backing her, I don't really know. I don't know if it's interesting because they brought this up as like a season 1 thing. So they've been hanging on to this for like a year. And then we had Jesse on the Vile Files. So you guys will recall that at the end of season 2 of Vanderpump, or sorry, not Vanderpump Villa. What's the name of the show? Secret Lives of Mormon Wives. Marciano flies to Utah to give Layla some tea, and he says that he had an affair with Jesse and that they fucked. So what's interesting is how much time we're spending on Demi and Marciano when it seems like a lot more happened with Jesse and Marciano. So Jesse speaks to this on the Vile File. So I'm going to play this clip so that you guys can hear what Jesse had to say. Just find it.
So you have not been wearing your wedding ring. Is there anything that you can share about your marriage?
I will say that reality TV is hard on any relationship, whether it's a friendship or a marriage. And we've been through a lot and now it's going to be public and we're working through things and we're trying our best, but things are a little tricky right now. And, I'm excited to hopefully someday share more about that. But right now it's it's just real life and it's hard. So yeah, I don't really know.
I have to ask, and I'm assuming, because I think you guys are filming season 3, and
yeah.
I know obviously we want to be conscious of spoilers,
yeah.
But season 2 ended with quite the accusation towards you. And Miranda made it seem like you and Jordan have some real tough conversations ahead. Do you want to clear the air about like you and Marciano and him saying you guys had an affair, or can you what can you, if anything, clear up right now?
I can't say much, unfortunately. I wish I could, but there is just so much more to the story. And again, relationships are hard and they're nuanced, and there's so much more that I'm excited to share because I think people will be able to relate to my story. And I think it may help people.
Do you think that Jordan is a good role model for the men that your daughter should look for in a husband?
Oh my gosh, that is a loaded question. No, I think that there's been a lot that's happened. And I think that he and I are both willing to work on things and change, but maybe he should be asked that question because that might wake him up. Yeah. But no, I think there's a lot of things that have needed to change.
So that's interesting. And then, of course, our favorite busybody, pot stir, get in the middle of it, Sheena Shay decides to throw her, story into the mix. So she speaks on Shenanigans as to what she witnessed happening between Marciano and Jesse when Jesse was in LA. So I'm going to play this clip from Shenanigans. It is really, really long, but it gives, again, all of the context.
Can say whatever the fuck I want. But out of respect for all of the viewers who are left on that cliffhanger, I don't want to reveal too much because I know a lot. But I will say that what Marciano said to Layla, the verbatim, is what he told me and what he also told to me when the three of us had a FaceTime call together.
Oh, not a FaceTime call.
That night at TomTom, which was like all over Reddit, Bravo Investigator.
I saw that. And I was like,
because you were at that time, like this was like supposedly Jesse and him were making out at TomTom.
I did not see them making out.
Okay.
They were, however, all over each other, very, very flirty.
I saw a fan picture of them holding hands, like a video or something like from one of those far away videos.
That she jumped, threw her legs around his waist and like was all over. And I'm just like,
she did. I literally was. I was standing right next to him, and I was like, "Damn, I don't greet him with hugs like that."
I'm saying, like, how did we get like? So what went down in the villa? Yeah, to like how from the villa now she's like jumping. Was Jordan there? Did he see her jump?
Oh.
It was just me and Brock. So Marciano was in town with us that weekend. We were all going to this Equinox event at the Porsche dealer where they take you in the cars and drive you around. We did yoga. Jesse Metcalf was there. Like, do I tell them about the book now? Or?
Oh, no. We have a book coming out soon?
Yeah, it's called My Good Side, available for pre-order now at mygoodsidebook.com. So, and then Jesse was in town to do my podcast.
Jesse Metcalf or Jesse?
Sorry, Jesse from Mormon Wives.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm still thinking about the girl from Desperate Housewives.
So we're all, and she was like, "Oh my God, I haven't seen Marciano since Villa. I would love to see him. Like, let's all do something." So we go to Sir, we go to TomTom, and yes, very flirty at TomTom. We do the Porsche event together the next day, and then we all went to Giggly Squad together. And while we were at Giggly Squad, it was Brock, me, Jesse or Marciano, I forget which one I was technically sitting next to, and then my sister. And then after the Giggly Squad show, my sister was like, "What's going on with Marciano and Jesse?" I was like, "What do you mean?" And she goes, "His hand was on her thigh the entire show." And I was like,
Word clock that shit.
Interesting. And so then I'm thinking about the night before. I don't know how much I can say, you guys. Okay, so
he started. What's the merch?
Because he said that happened, right?
Yeah.
So I'll say this. That night after TomTom, we all went back to Jesse's hotel room, the four of us. We were literally on FaceTime with Jordan. We were just like, "Oh my God, we just had such a fun night. Like, wish you were here," sort of thing. They were flirty, but that's how Marciano is.
Yeah.
He's like that with most of my friends, but it's usually not in a cross the line inappropriate way. He is very touchy.
He is. I mean, he's like that with me. You know what I mean? Like, he's like very, and it's even like disarming as a gay guy with a straight guy. You're like, oh, he's so, like touchy and just like.
Do like the shoulder massage or something. He's just.
Okay, but Jesse's married.
Like that, but
I don't know why they're defending
never cross the line with me or anyone like I'm close with another to me.
Yeah.
But it just, So
I come out
we're in the hotel room.
Me too.
And then leaving. It's now like 3 a.m. We're like, "Yo, we got this like Equinox like yoga thing in the next morning." Summer was at my mom's house for the night because we had a full Sunday, and then she was coming back to the house. So Brock and Marciano were walking out of the room. The door closes. Brock and I get to the elevator, and we're like, "Wait, where's Marciano?" And the elevator's there, and I'm like, "Marciano," and then I'm like, "Shit, 3 a.m. I don't want to like yell down the hallway," and I'm like, "He's coming. Maybe I don't know. Like, I thought they already had each other's numbers, but I don't know." So then he ends up coming down in the elevator. And I'm like, and Brock goes, "Oh, you think they just got one in?" And I'm like, "No, what are you talking about? We were just on FaceTime with Jordan." Absolutely not. Maybe they were just finishing a conversation or something. They didn't want to say in front of us. I don't know. But no, of course not. She's married. And I know that Jesse is not in an open marriage. In this marriage, she is not a swinger. So I'm like, no, like, you're just whatever. Get in the car, go back to my house. And Marciano was just on his phone the entire time. And I'm like, but I'm like, he has girls all over, We get back to the house and he's like, "I think I'm going to go back." And I'm like, "Okay, excuse me? No, you are not. Brock, live it." He's like, "I swear to God, you go and do that. That is someone else's wife. You're done." Brock goes to bed. And I'm just like, "Oh, what?" And Marciano's like, "Well, for all I know, she's a swinger. They're open." And I'm like, before you walk out of this door, you message her and you say, is Jordan cool with this? And you confirm that because I don't know. I've just met her. I don't know her that well. Maybe they are in an open marriage. I don't know. And so he messages her. She says something along the lines of like, oh yeah, definitely. Something that very affirmative was a yes. He shows me the text and he's like, I'm out. And I was like, I want no part of this. Like if she's, that's fine. Whatever you do behind closed doors in your own marriage, that's fine by me. Like it's not my business. So then he comes back to my house at like 7 a.m. And the same way that he told Layla, he says to me. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, cool. Now we all get to go do yoga together. We get to yoga and Jessie has an opposite story. And she's like, nothing happened.
She says that in front of Marciano or just to you?
Yes. And I'm like,
and what does he say?
He's just like going with it. And I'm like, I'm so confused right now. Also, it's not my business, but now you guys have made it my business. You literally brought it in my house and then left my house with it. Also, I have both of y'all's locations. I know
I have everyone's location, right? That's a real mystery of the show.
Yeah, I mean, I have like so many questions because I mean, Jessie does bring up on the season that she has been in like throuple relationships before. So in her
previous marriage.
But Jordan and her are, I mean,
no, not Jordan.
They don't do that sort of thing.
Right.
Okay.
So I have Marciano insinuating and alluding to like, yeah, that happened last night. So then Jessie's like, wait, do you think? And I'm like, well, yeah, I do. I'm like, also, Jessie, like, I know both of your locations were in the same place. She goes, no. He went, saw another girl, didn't want to go back into your house that late in the middle of the night. So since he was in WeHo, he asked if he could come crash in my hotel room. And he just slept on the little like couch chair.
That's a convoluted freaking story.
And I just said, okay.
Yeah, because
we'll just leave it at that.
Because like now I'm continually confused because she like went on the Taste of Taylor podcast and I saw her bring you up, but she said that, you know, she thinks that you just don't have the full story and that's why you were siding to me. But now you're saying
I've got like 4 sides to the story.
What I'm saying. I've got every story.
A little bit of Jessie's, a lot of Marciano's, all of Demi's, and screenshot I saw.
Well, the screenshots never lie. So,
but it's a matter of who I want to believe, and at this point, I don't know who to believe because Jessie looked me in the eye at yoga that morning. She's like, "I swear, Sheena, like nothing happened," and I'm like, "I believe you."
Yeah.
But then Marciano was telling me something did happen. I'm like,
have you ever been lied to though before with someone staring right in your face?
Let's see, Raquel, Tom Sandoval. No, not that I can think of.
So it's not out of the realm that people are lying to your face, though.
Right.
Okay, so then in response to that, Jessie's husband Jordan said, Jessie has never said that, and then like cry, laugh, face, more lies. Oh my goodness. And the way that Jessie was speaking on the Vile Files, like, it was very, you know, you think she would be more upset when she's being asked about whether she had an affair, and she just was very media trained, but not in a bad way, just very sort of light about it, just lighter than I thought she would be if we were talking about something this serious, like cheating on your husband. But she's just like, yeah, you know, we're going through it, and, you know, I can't really give you a lot of more information right now, and yeah, I hope it'll all come out soon. And so honestly, I think this is all storyline. I think this whole Jessie thing is completely fake. I think her and Jordan are actually super fine, that he's fully in on this storyline. Marciano is in on this storyline, separate from Demi. I'm just talking about the Jessie situation. I even feel like Sheena's in on this too. She says that she can say whatever she wants. She's not being paid. I think she would actually still be invested in the drama and still speak about it even if she wasn't being paid. This whole thing just seems so incredibly strange to me. It seems very much for internet fodder. It just doesn't feel real. Like, it's just the vibe that I'm getting from like Jessie, her husband, their social media activity, and just Jessie's vibe in general. It just doesn't seem like she's going through something like this. So I don't know. You guys let me know what you think, but I really feel like this is pure storyline. Okay, so let's move on to the Valley. So Michelle Saini was on the Vile Files, and I want to apologize to Michelle and to my audience for maybe taking Jessie's side a little too much, which is not something I even normally do because I am such a girl's girl. I hate most men, especially white men, but I think that Michelle has just been such an unlikable character for us, and there was a lot of things that maybe I guess I understood because I am such an angry person. I have so much vitriol that I think that if someone hurt me, I would continuously probably try to hurt them as well. I know this sounds awful. This doesn't make me sound like a good person, but I am super vengeful. I just am. So I saw a lot of myself in Jessie, which is not a good thing at all, obviously, but there were parts of that I understood. And because Michelle was so unlikable, it was just hard to sort of see her side. But now, hearing her sit down on the Viall Files, I can definitely get a much different perspective. So, Michelle seems to be the type of person who's sort of a pushover, not in a bad way. She's just a very like yes kind of person. So her whole relationship with Jesse was her just being like a yes girl. Whatever he wanted to do, she would just say yes. So she didn't really feel like she had a voice in that relationship. She said that basically his drinking was getting really, really insane at one point. He was drinking like bottles at a time. They had financial issues because when she had Isabella, he was supposed to be working, but he wasn't. He was out drinking for hours and hours a day. And I was also wondering, like, why she never said anything to him about that? Because now she's saying things like, oh, like maybe he was off cheating, or like, what was he doing when he was out for 8-hour drinks? And I'm sitting there being like, well, why'd you never ask him? But I think that's part of her personality or what she's saying, where she's just such a, go with the flow type of person that she probably just didn't question him a lot and just let him be. She said that Jesse has always wanted to be on TV. He wanted to be an actor. He even went to New York to become an actor, and he tried to get on Million Dollar Listing 10 years ago. So this is definitely something that he's, been trying to want to do. And she said that he's very scripted and has plans for everything that he's doing, which I think makes sense, right? She talked about how at the beginning of this, before they started filming, they had talked about her cheating. She was very open with him about it. She told him everything that she did. And then they discussed that they were not going to bring this up on camera for Isabella's sake. And then he's brought it up on camera literally every time since, questioning her and saying things like, did you fuck and did you do other things, when he knows exactly what happened. He's doing it to really humiliate and embarrass her. And that is awful, right? Like now that I'm seeing that from her lens, that is really, really awful. She said that intimacy changed once she became pregnant and he wouldn't touch her anymore. And that I thought was interesting because when she was saying on the show that he wouldn't hug her or kiss her or touch her, I'm like, when was this? When was this? Because he said in season 1, I wish we could go back to April 2020, which is when Isabella was born, and it was all like hugs and kisses and whatever. So I guess their intimacy changed once she got pregnant, and then probably changed forever after that, because then he became like such a shitty husband and she wasn't interested in being intimate with him. But, she said this on this episode of the Viall Files, and she said it on the after show that he made disgusting comments in the boys' chat about her body when she was pregnant, and he would call her fat, which is absolutely disgusting. So I can't imagine being, I can imagine, I can very much imagine being pregnant, and I'm already so insecure about my body, or I am the type of person who is. And if my partner is, not being intimate with me, it would make me feel even more insecure about the way I look. And, as I'm going through my pregnancy and, my body's changing even more and I'm feeling grosser, that person who's supposed to make me feel like supported and loved and beautiful isn't doing so. That must be so stressful and tragic. And then she talks about how after after they had Isabella, he started doing coke and drinking a lot more. And I'm really surprised that she outed him for this. And this made me realize what she was talking about when she was saying, like, Jesse is just as bad as Jax. Because I'm like, you know what you're saying when you're saying that? You're implying that he's on drugs. Well, seems that he is. And considering that Jesse and Jax are friends, I think that makes a lot of sense. But Brittany always said that the reason that she never brought this up on camera and always just called it partying was because it's illegal and she can't say that. So in that vein, I have to very much disagree with Michelle. I actually think it's really, really not cool that she outed his drug usage on camera on a podcast, because, that is also the father of your child. I know he has said all these horrible things about you as well, but you're now accusing him of something illegal, and this is going to affect his ability to get like work and business and to proceed in life, right? To be outed on a national platform about drug usage is a really big deal. Like, remember how upset Carl was when Hannah Berner did that, when Kyle did that to him, right? It's a very, very serious thing to say that on a public platform. And while Carl is now sober and he's very open about his drug usage, and he uses that as a way to sort of educate and mentor people and talk about what he's going through, Jesse isn't, right? So Michelle, I really wish you hadn't have done that. I thought that was kind of like a no-no. And they agreed not to introduce significant others to Isabella without agreeing first. But then, Isabella comes home being like, I saw a girl in daddy's bed. And so, it's just been like this nightmare for her from day one. But it really sounds like the drinking was a big deal. She even talks about when they moved into their first house and how he was just like belligerently drunk and he couldn't even like walk or stand. And she's pregnant and they're trying to, or sorry, she's not pregnant. I think she had the baby, but this was like their first house. They're moving in. They've got the movers. She's trying to direct everything. And he's just like pissed drunk off of his ass, right? So, yeah, if you look at it in the totality, it does really seem like a horrific marriage. I still don't have a good sense of why these two were together to begin with. She has sort of tried to explain it, but it is so hard when we never have seen them in a happy place to actually picture them together. But what she is described as a person who never really valued her or her opinions. It was always what he wanted to do. Um, he even like apparently like fought with the doctors when she was giving birth. Like he didn't want her to have an epidural. He didn't want this. He didn't want that. He was arguing like as if he was the fucking doctor. Um, he's also made her feel like ugly and not beautiful and not loved. And then when you come to like the drinking and the drugs, I mean, I'm sorry. Like if you're married to someone and you don't feel that the way or their relationship with substances is commensurate with your life anymore, is no longer something that is consistent with the kind of family that you want, I think that is totally understandable and acceptable. So I do have to, give Michelle some props, one for coming forward and telling her story. Does that make her any more likable? Maybe a little. Because I feel a little bit more for her now and I have a little bit more context for where she's coming from and how difficult the past several years have been for her, I think that I can definitely see it a lot more from her perspective now and feel for her a lot more. And, despite the fact that she's just like not that interesting a person, I think that it's interesting that she sort of recognizes that in a way. She says, like, I'm an introvert. I was never meant for this sort of world. But I think that's why it's almost fun to watch people like this on TV because they weren't meant for it, right? Sometimes we're watching something funny about her, like her voice, which I hate to make fun of. I know a lot of people make fun of her voice, but little things like that or her mannerisms, we're making fun of it because it's so not like reality TV coded, I guess. Okay, and then we had Zach doing an interview with Decider.com. And so I'm just going to read you guys the questions and answers from this article. So he was asked, before we get into everything going on this season, I want to ask you about some comments you've made about Lala Kent on social media. What are your thoughts on her, and how did you feel about her, Sheena Shay, and Tom Schwartz making cameos on The Valley? And he said, the thing is that we're all friends from way back in the day. I've been in LA 9 years. I've known Lala since she was integrated into the group on VPR. I've been around for everything. And I think with any friendship, you have the ups and downs. You might not see eye to eye on certain things. And so that might be where some of my comments online have come from. But I'm actually very happy to see Tom Schwartz on the show, of course, and Sheena and Lala. The more the merrier sometimes. Do I think our show holds its own without them? Sure. Did they add? Possibly. So I'm here for whatever. If they come on, let's bring it because they're part of our group. Anyways, outside of filming, so it makes sense. I mean, we all know everybody is really upset to have them on. And like Lala and Sheena Lala hasn't even had a scene yet at all. So it's very weird to hear her commentary on the after show for things that she wasn't present for. Because I feel like the concept of the after show is to give you more information about things that we saw on camera. But why are you asking people who weren't even there? You know what I mean? Okay, and then he's asked, you seemingly called out some of the Vanderpump Rules girls after they unfollowed James Kennedy on social media. Why did you decide to do that? And he said, I think this is no surprise to anybody. I am Kristen Doute's best friend. Number one, like you come for her, you come for me. That's kind of how my loyalty is in friendships. And I have just seen some not great behavior, friendship that I would consider like slights to her over the years. Even when people had all the information, they were making these conscious decisions to either talk about him in the press or to make light of things when, if you wanted to, you could have just ignored it. You didn't have to hit it head on. You could have just ignored it. You didn't have to sing his praises. There were just certain decisions that I was like, wow, it felt very fake. And then all of a sudden, when it's publicly not cool and oh, it's this other person, then all of a sudden it's a big deal and you want to make this splash, I just felt like, for me, I had to call it out. It's not even a slight to any of them. Some people didn't realize they were following him, and then something big happens, and you look and you're like, oh, I need to unfollow. And there were other situations. Sheena will say she was already about to unfollow him or something like that. I don't know. But I do feel like sometimes when someone like Kristen has not been supported by her friends in a certain way, like, I'm sorry, I am just not someone that will stand idly by, ever. So, this really resonated with me because I feel like this is the same thing that I have been trying to say for several months and like trying to been screaming from the rooftops and no one's been listening. The problem here, first of all, it's so funny because this all started because Zach had made a comment or was like a tweet or something saying something like, it's funny that all of you are unfollowing James Kennedy now when it's popular too, and if you think this is about you, it is. And then Sheena thought it was about her, so she messaged Zach and he's like, it is about you. But regardless, Sheena just had to like, the fact that she kept having to involve herself is sort of the problem. Because here's what happened. Sheena was, and I've told you guys this a million times, but Sheena and the rest of the Vanderpump Rules cast were given very serious information about James Kennedy in the summer of 2023 that led to an investigation of him by NBC Universal in the fall of 2023. And instead of, well, what everyone else did was just carry on and ignore the situation, which is, one method. But what Sheena did was get herself so incredibly intimately involved. The minute that happened, she started befriending James Kennedy even more. She invited him to her house every weekend, playing with her daughter. She was going to his Las Vegas shows all the time. And then when rumors started to come out even more about him, like there was that whole thing about Teddy and Tamra taking an Uber with James and Allie in May 2022 to the MTV Music Awards or some sort of music awards. And then Teddy and Tamra alleged that they got in a fight and that they had to be separated from the car. One had to pull one had to pull another. Who pulls Allie onto her podcast to denounce that entire thing? Sheena fucking Shay. That's the problem. Nobody told Sheena to go fucking do that. She was like, Allie, come on my podcast, shut this down. And she just didn't need to get so intimately involved. She could have just stayed out of it. She didn't have to befriend him so hard. She didn't have to denounce rumors about him so hard when they didn't have to do with her. I know that the reason she did all of this is because she didn't want the show to end and she just didn't want her career to end. So at the end of the end of the day, this was all for selfish motivations, but it was at the expense of somebody else. Do you know what I mean? So that's what Zach is saying. When she had all of the information, she continued and continued and continued to befriend him harder. What's the word? Support him in the press harder and just make him seem like a good person even harder when she knew all of the information. So I will keep saying this until I'm blue in the face because, I'll let it go when Sheena lets it go. But the problem is she keeps speaking about this on her podcast, online, and things like that. And I think she should just do what all of the other people did in this situation, which is just not speak about it. There were several people involved in the Vanderpump Rules cast who all knew about this situation with James Kennedy, and not a single other person spoke about it aside from her. But she just decides to push herself and, mirror herself in things that have nothing to do with her. Sometimes that's to her benefit, by like getting herself involved in the Secret Lives of Mormon Wives stuff. Could that possibly get her on that show? Sure, maybe. But, when it comes to stuff like this, it's just not the right thing to do. It's just not. Okay. Oh, and Brittany, our beloved little Brittany Cartwright, might be dating someone. She might have been soft launching someone. So she posts this picture at the gym. And for those of you watching on YouTube, maybe I can try and show you. So it's a picture of her at the gym, and then there's a guy behind her, but he's facing backwards. So she's facing forward, he's facing backwards, and he's flexing his very muscly arms. And she's in New York. So I don't know if this is a guy she's dating, banging, or whether it's just maybe like a trainer. Who knows? But she's definitely trying to get some attention here, and I love it. All right, so let's move on to Love is Blind. And yes, we have some Love is Blind news, a couple of stories today, which is pretty cool. So Ashley Idionser, I don't know if that's how you pronounce her last name, Idionser, Ashley A, was on What's the Reality podcast, which is AD's podcast, which I typically very much like. And you may recall Ashley from Ashley and Tyler. And I don't recall the actual season of Love is Blind that this was, but you'll remember because this was the guy who was hiding that he had 3 kids, okay? So we heard recently that they got divorced and we're all like, oh, didn't see that coming. And she tells us a lot about sort of what led to that and gives us a lot of information in this episode. So basically she says that it was the social media stuff and the social media fodder that shifted their happy home to an unhappy environment. So you recall that at the time, people were really talking a lot about information that was found out about him behind the scenes. So there was this woman who came out with this 5-part TikTok video. She was best friends with Tyler, or so she claimed, and she said that he was the sperm donor to her children, but then she changed the story and said that he was a sperm donor to only one of her children because she and her lesbian partner wanted to have a child and he was just trying to be helpful. So he provided sperm for this child. But then another time, he and this woman who were best friends, and she's a lesbian and he's straight, they got drunk, they slept together, and then that ended up in twins, meaning that he fathered the twins. Then we saw these pictures around online of him wearing matching pajamas with the kids. We heard about them having the same last name. The grandmother had posted pictures with the kids. And then all of this stuff was gone, right? Then like the mother's account went private. The grandmother's account went private. This other woman was still like saying a lot of things. And then we had a lot of content creators really gathering the information. And there was two main ones who really had all of the tea, and that was Ricky, which is Storytime with Ricky, if you follow her, and Jessie Woo. They were the ones who came out with all of this information that we were watching while we were watching Love is Blind. Now, it was such an odd season of Love is Blind because in one way we were sort of rooting for them. They were sort of that quintessential really good couple. But on the back end, while we were watching, we knew that this man had 3 kids and that this had never been brought up on camera. And we were just like waiting for the other shoe to drop. And so basically he had told her, Ashley, that he was a sperm donor for all of the children, that he hadn't seen any of them in a year, that the mother had actually blocked him because she had wanted to like raise the child with her partner and just didn't want him involved at all. And then all of the stuff, she says that all of the stuff, you know, that we found out about him, she didn't know until post-reunion filming. And one of the points she's trying to make is like, listen, everyone online was like yelling into their TV and yelling at me online saying like, you're so stupid, Ashley. Why are you with this man when she's been with him for a year? Because when we're watching it, you know, it's way further in time. They've already been married for an entire year. So she's just like, what do you all want me to do? And there was a lot of like really disrespectful things that she said. You know, it was either on the reunion or on interviews after the fact where she's like, all of y'all aren't married and it shows. And she feels like what she was trying to say was, you know, even if all of this stuff was true, in a real marriage, not a TV marriage, you would still try to work it out. You still wouldn't just leave the person immediately because it's a real marriage. And she was like, I never wanted to get a divorce. So then all of this stuff starts coming out and he's standing on business. So is his mother. And they're just like, no, 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 no. Like none of this stuff is true. And then she said she ended up finding the truth for herself. She went through his computer and found like a series of Google Meets chats between Tyler and the baby mama for many, many years. And all she said about it was that apparently they were creating like a messy, toxic situation around how these children were conceived. He apparently had seen the kids the day before he left for filming when he told her he hadn't seen them in a year. He told her that he was ready for marriage, which he obviously wasn't. She also felt like somebody who had all of these like skeletons in their closet wouldn't go on television because like who would be that stupid? So that was also something for her that was like always in her head. He also said he never spent the holidays with the kids, which we know isn't true because we've seen him in matching like Christmas pajamas with the kids. And then she was saying that he probably got through the screening with the show because he probably just said he was a sperm donor and everyone probably just thought that was like a really great thing. So she said that she put pressure on herself to stay with him because she hadn't found out this information for herself. And it was just like everyone else calling her stupid. But she sort of just felt like it was all of the internet noise and fodder that actually caused her to have a lot of depression because they would be saying all of these things about her and then she would be going to sleep at night and wouldn't be able to sleep because she'd have all of this in her mind. And she also felt like, you know, it would actually push her closer to Tyler because there's almost no one in the world that understands what you're going through besides the two of you. So she does seem to place a lot of blame on the internet as opposed to him. She does call him a pathological liar, and she does say that she found a ton of other things, but she wouldn't speak to that and said she didn't want to tell his story for him, which I don't know. I mean, you're coming on this platform, you're going on a podcast, like tell us what he did, right? Because it seems like from the information she's given us, this isn't really new information. All the things that you're telling us that you found out about him, we knew that. We told you. And that's what was so funny because at the reunion, she's like, the internet thinks that they know more about the situation than me. We did. We told you. And even when she says, like, oh, I went on his computer and like found out that the children have the same last name as him. I think Ricky came out and had said that. I feel like that wasn't new information. And then he actually denied that to her. And then so she shows it to him on like on her literal phone, being like, so somebody hacked your email then? And then she asked him later, like, why did you lie? And he's like, well, I didn't want to make things worse at that point. It's like things are already as bad as they can get, right? But anyways, sort of what I've been hearing the outcome of this podcast being is not good. People are really mad at Ashley and AD, and a lot of creators who were involved in this, like Ricky and Jesse Wu, and go and follow them both, they feel that, as pop culture journalists, they were just telling their news stories, and AD and Ashley are sort of making them out to be, I mean, Ashley did call them disgusting. She didn't use their names, but Ashley and AD did refer to two specific creators and said things like the call is coming from inside the house, which implies that, these creators are Black women and we are Black women. And they're sort of implying that as Black women, we shouldn't be tearing each other down like that. But Ricky and Jesse have, both come out. So both go watch both of their podcasts. Sorry, I am like misspeaking up a storm today. Go watch both of their podcasts. And they have both said, like, we're just reporting the news. It has nothing to do with that. And you're now calling us disgusting for giving you information that at the end of the day is the reason that you broke up with him. So while Ashley feels like the internet went on a smear campaign against her, and actually people did apparently try to call her work to get her fired. So that's completely fucked up and not okay. Like, that's insane that people do that. This is TV. But aside from that, it just seems like the things that happened in her marriage, it seemed to be the kinds of things that maybe she acted as though she was better than the internet or better than us. She even made a comment like she was treated better as a wife or more respected as a wife. And at the end of the day, she didn't want to get divorced. So I do feel bad for her that all of this happened to her. Apparently, this guy is also broke, and he was also saying weird stuff was happening near the end where like he was having problems at work. They put him on like a performance plan. He said he didn't even like have the emotional capacity to like be there for her through this when he's like the one who put her through it. But again, I just feel like the point is that I think she's just placing the blame in the wrong place because she barely had anything negative to say about him publicly, while she had so many public things to say about the internet and the content creators who ended up being right. You know what I'm saying? Okay. So then we had Matt and Colleen from season 3 of Love is Blind Breakup. So I'm going to read Colleen's statement. And we did hear, I mean, there's been rumblings about this for a little while. Nothing was official, but we'd heard that maybe something was going on in their relationship. They've been married for 4 years, if that gives you any context. So Colleen wrote, "Hi everyone, we wanted to share something personal, and this is not easy to do, but after nearly 4 years together, we've decided to end our marriage and move forward on our own paths. We've been separated for some time now and have been doing our best to work through everything privately and with care. This was an incredibly difficult decision, not one we made lightly. It came with a lot of thought, and it's been an emotional process for both of us. We met in the most unique and unexpected way and will always be grateful for the love and memories we shared. There's not one thing we would change, and we continue to have deep respect and care for one another. Thank you to everyone who has supported us. We kindly ask for compassion as we navigate this transition, Colleen and Matt." So I'm trying to remember their relationship. I think I liked them initially. I think she was a ballet dancer, and I think she talked about being sexualized a lot for that. And then I think his thing was that he had been engaged before, and then the girl like cheated on him, possibly with a friend or something, and then got pregnant right away. And so he had like trust issues. So if I recall correctly, I believe there was like one of those group scenes where all the couples hang out together. And the guy that she had also had a connection with, as opposed to Matt, like the person she didn't choose in the pods, had a conversation with her, and it was maybe a little more flirty. And Matt got really upset about it. And I think he was upset for quite a while when she didn't actually do anything. And I remember seeing a lot of like pain and stress and hurt in her face when he was talking about it. I don't remember if that was on the show or in the reunion, but I remember a lot of stress and pain and worry in her eyes when he was discussing this situation, to the point where like she thought she was going to lose him. And then I also remember at the reunion, like they weren't living together, which was weird. And I think they lived apart for most of their marriage. I'm not sure if they ever lived together. I probably should have looked that up before doing this. My apologies. But yeah, they were a bit of a strange couple in that way. And the public reaction has been sort of like good for her. So yeah, maybe something insidious was going on in that relationship because they seem to move incredibly, incredibly slowly. But at the same time, 4 years is a long time to be married. I mean, not in general, but like 4 years is a long time, right? So I'm very curious to see if we'll get any more information about what happens there, or maybe we'll see one of them on like a new Netflix dating show, right? Like there's that one Pop the Balloon where everyone's going on, or like what's the other one that they do after the fact now? The one that AD was on? Perfect Match, Perfect Match. Maybe we'll see them on Perfect Match, or one of them. Okay, so let's move on to Teen Mom. And we just had the season finale this past week, and we really don't know where Teen Mom is going from here. We've heard that it might be canceled. We've heard that filming has basically stopped. We heard that from Corey Warden. I think Leah Messer has even come out saying that she's hoping it will continue. So we don't really know where it's going from here, but we definitely had some stuff that came out of this final episode that I definitely wanted to talk about. But before we do that, I just need to give you a bit of context when it comes to Caitlyn and Tyler before we get into what happened in this past week's episode. So, as we all know, Caitlyn and Tyler placed their daughter Carly for adoption when they were 16 years old. They placed her with a couple named Brandon and Teresa, and it was an open adoption. But in the past several years, we've seen Brandon and Teresa and Caitlyn and Tyler have basically a lot of strife, and it sort of seems like a lot of that has to do with Caitlyn and Tyler speaking about them online, and sort of just every time they get upset, they end up tweeting things. And that sort of seemed to be what the issue was, to the point where Brandon and Teresa in this past season basically cut off communication and didn't want Caitlyn and Tyler to send gifts to Carly, didn't want to have meetups with Carly. And it was really, weighing on them. This past year, Caitlyn and Tyler started their own podcast, Kate and Ty Break It Down. And on this podcast, and I did discuss this maybe a month or two ago, but I just want to repeat this for context, they gave a lot more information about their relationship with Brandon and Teresa, because what we see on screen or even online is such a small snippet of that. And I think that what they said in this episode gave us a lot more context for what is actually going on with them and Brandon and Teresa. And then I'll explain what happened in this past episode. So a couple months ago, I think it was in April, Kate and Ty had Jordy Cray on their podcast, who's a TikToker. And they explained that Brandon and Teresa had agreed to an open adoption and agreed to have it filmed for MTV. They had signed up for it. And Kate said that basically, when it's beneficial for them to exploit Carly, they will. So, for example, they said that Caitlyn and Tyler could only post pictures if they did with the back of her head. But then they first said that she couldn't be on the show, but then agreed to let MTV post pictures of the back of her head if they were compensated for it. They were also on a magazine cover with her full face when she was 5 years old, which I didn't know about. And then fast forward, they posted a picture of the back of her head, Caitlyn and Tyler did. It was sort of like a picture of everybody like walking, like the whole family, and it was just like the back of everyone. And that made Brandon upset because he was like, oh, well, now MTV can't pay us. So that gives a little bit more context, because the way that Brandon and Teresa have made it seem is like, we just want to be so private with our daughter. We don't want any of this public spectacle. But it does seem like there were several situations where if they were going to be compensated, they were fine with it. So on this past episode, Caitlyn and Tyler sit down with Dr. Drew over a Zoom because they've just been really upset because they want to have a relationship with their daughter. They want to be able to see Carly. And Dr. Drew said, okay, let me try to reach out to Brandon and Teresa. So they said, okay. So he did. And basically what he came back to them with was like, look, Brandon and Teresa just feel like with the whole online stuff, it's just gotten really negative. So they're not saying never. They're just saying not right now. We just sort of need the negativity to calm down. And they also said they're open to you sending gifts and stuff again. And Caitlyn and Tyler did start getting a little heated because they were just like, well, why are they willing to tell you that, but not us? And we didn't know that. And I get it, right? But at the end of the, sorry, I can't speak today. At the end of the day, I feel like what Dr. Drew was trying to get across was like, these are baby steps. Just take them, right? Just take it. Then Dr. Drew says, okay, so Carly apparently is such a beautiful singer. She has this amazing voice. And Brandon and Teresa want to share this song that she sang at church or something like that. And they want me to play it for you so that you can hear it. And this also made Caitlyn and Tyler a bit mad because they're like, well, we've actually been asking for like recordings of her singing for quite some time for Brandon and Teresa, and they never gave them to us. And Caitlyn made a good point. She's like, honestly, like for me to listen to that, I feel like I would need to listen to that in private. It's going to be so emotional for me, which I totally understand. That's her daughter singing, her daughter that, that she didn't get to raise. I mean, there's got to be just so much emotion wrapped up into it. So she's like, I just want to do this alone. So they go off video, they go off camera, and then apparently Caitlyn and Tyler reach out to get a link for the recording, and Brandon and Teresa refuse to send it. And you know why? Because it's not going to be on camera. And that is just such fucking bullshit. That is wild. It just proves exactly what Caitlyn and Tyler said. Because when Dr. Drew was there and he was going to play it, it was going to be on camera. But because Caitlyn said she wanted to listen to it privately, nope. Now Brandon and Teresa have no interest. Wild. It's so wild. Like, they purport themselves to be something that they really just aren't. So Tyler did end up writing like an open letter to Brandon and Teresa on Instagram after this episode aired. So I'm going to read that to you guys. And it says, "Dear Teresa and Brandon, thank you for reaching out with a message. We very much appreciate that you took the time to do that for us. As for Carly's song, it is such a beautiful gift and so meaningful. We just asked if we could listen to it in private first because it brings a lot of emotions and sadness. For us, it's so beautiful to listen to her, but it also brings us a lot of feelings. So we were just asking to listen to it privately first and process the inevitably intense feelings that come from it. But you need to understand that this also creates a lot of confusion for us because you get upset when we speak about our adoption story publicly, but simultaneously want us to share a very personal song regarding our adoption story nationally on television for the whole world, which we inevitably have to talk about publicly. It's confusing because you don't want us to have the song ourselves, even though that's what Carly wants, but yet you want the whole world to have it and are using TV to do so. So even though you've claimed many times that you do not want to be a part of TV, so I hope you understand that you make us feel stuck, confused, controlled, and manipulated, regardless if that was your intent or not. We are incredibly sorry that if anything we have said about our truth as birth parents has hurt you or Carly or negatively impacted your life. That was never our intention. As far as speaking about adoption as a whole, we will always speak about adoption, share the facts, share adoptees' great stories and adoptees' bad stories. So we will always speak about adoption. We just won't speak about our own adoption journey moving forward. However, we believe that our advocacy for adoptees and adoption education should not have an impact on our reconciliation efforts until you choose to make it that way. But at the end of the day, this reconciliation effort isn't for you or for us. It's for Carly and what she needs and wants. So we cannot allow any of our own personal pain and insecurities to get in the way of that. We're the adults here, and it's our job to put everything aside for the best interests of Carly, which requires open, honest, and transparent communication. So we hope moving forward you will participate in that requirement. Love, Caitlyn and Tyler." They're a lot more mature than people give them credit for, honestly, and that episode was really difficult to watch for so many reasons, but one, because Tyler just broke down and started apologizing to Caitlyn, and she's like, "For what?" And he's like, "For not having known more, for not have being smarter, for having been 16 years old, for having been uneducated, for having been a child, for having let them do this to us, for not asking more questions, for all the things. I'm just so sorry. I'm just so sorry." And at the end of the day, they really do regret giving their child to these people. And that is something, I've never gotten pregnant, I've never had a child, but I've always been against adoption for myself because, and not for anybody else, just before myself. Like if I were ever in that situation, I feel like I could not place my child for adoption because even if I met the family and they seemed amazing, you never really know where your kid is going. You just don't. And so that's what would just like fuck me up for the rest of my life, I feel like. And I feel like that's what's fucking with them. They had to make this insanely difficult decision at a time when they shouldn't have had to. And they had no help and they had no one around them who could have guided them properly. They had two crackheads as parents who were married to each other. And hopefully when Carly is of age, they'll all be able to come together at least. But at least, Tyler and Caitlyn are amazing parents to the children that they do parent. I think they are such an amazing representation of parents of an adopted child, just of everything. I just really love Caitlyn and Tyler. Okay, and then we had Leah sending a text to her mother, Amber. So you recall that Leah is Amber's daughter. Amber Portwood is a teen mom OG. basically her relationship with her daughter has been contentious for many, many years now. Leah was with her partner Gary Shirley on and off for a long time. That's who's the father of her child. She was physically aggressive with him, and she did spend some time in prison. Then after that, she met a slew of other guys. She ended up getting pregnant with another guy. I don't know if they ended up ever getting engaged, but she had a child with him named James. They ended up breaking up, and there was a whole domestic violence incident with that as well. And now James lives in California with his dad, and Amber sees him on ever so often. But Amber struggles with a lot of mental health issues. And that's something that the other teen mom girls have always supported Amber on and tried to be there for her on the best that they could. But I felt like this was the first season where we saw the girls sort of turn and say, like, you know, we understand you have mental health issues, but enough is enough because the way that you're treating your daughter isn't okay. And it's sort of interesting to see that finally come to light. Now, something about Amber is, like I said, she has several mental health issues, but she also is somebody who doesn't take any accountability at all. Like, I understand that you have mental health issues, but at the end of the day, there is still some personal accountability. There is still parenting that you could have done in all of these years. But, you know, she rarely spends time with her daughter. And over the years, with her daughter now being 16, her daughter has noticed that her mother, Amber, is not the same kind of parent that her stepmom, which is Gary's wife, Christina, basically is to her. Because over the years, yeah, Amber has barely spent any time with Leah. She's had, you know, she's had her mental health stuff and she's claimed, well, that's why I can't spend time with you. I'm struggling with my mental health. But then at the same time, always had a boyfriend no matter what. So to Leah, it was like, well, how can you have like the emotional capacity for a boyfriend, but not the emotional capacity for me as a daughter? And now Leah is so much older and so much more articulate. And now she's able to say things like, I have abandonment issues because of my mom. And it's so interesting because in the past couple of episodes, we've seen Amber talk about her abandonment issues with her mom because her mom went to work. Now, I don't want to trivialize this because I don't really know the whole story there, so I don't want to like make it less than it is. And I know that her father was an alcoholic and there was a lot of screaming and yelling in the house. So I'm not saying her childhood was not traumatic in some way, but it's just interesting that she's using the term abandonment issues when she actually does not feel that her daughter has abandonment issues. She'll go online every single day and say that, and has been. And she's been saying things online like, you know, Leah should be grateful. I've never hurt her. I've never harmed her. So how has she been traumatized? I've done nothing to her. And it's like, Amber, are you kidding? And we see her with like a what do you call it? A therapist on the show, but I don't even know if this is like a real therapist because is he ever asking her to take accountability? It doesn't seem like this is a very good therapist because this woman is like 30 now and has never owned a single action when it comes to the mistakes that she's made as a parent. So in this past episode, in the finale, Leah finally gets like the gumption, the balls, the whatever, to finally text her mom and say, because Amber has sort of been implying and coming out and saying things this whole time, like, it can't be because of Leah, it's gotta be because of her dad. He must be spewing garbage in her ear about me. It can't be because she doesn't want to be around me. And so this is what the text was that Leah ended up sending to Amber. She said, this isn't meant to hurt you, but I want to let you know that all these years it's been my decision to not have a relationship with you, and nobody has influenced my decision. I feel like your recent online activities have put me in a place where I need to communicate this to put a boundary between us for myself. So I feel like that was a really, really mature text. I really liked it. But what I thought was a little odd was that when they showed Amber receiving the text, it sort of seemed like she was just home alone with like one producer. And what we do know from Amber is that she will fly off the handle. I mean, earlier in the season, some of the other Teen Mom girls were worried about her finding out that Leah wanted to be adopted by her stepmom, Christina. And they were so worried about her that they went to her house in person. So just after, if your daughter texts you something like that, and we know that Amber really struggles with her mental health and she's known to sort of fly off the handle, I'm just surprised they didn't have more support for her in that room. I mean, maybe they did, maybe they had her therapist ready and waiting, but basically she just reads it and then she starts kind of just, I don't know. She doesn't really know what to say. So she sort of starts to try to come at Leah, but doesn't want to say anything like too aggressive. So she's like, Leah, you're rude. You're mean and rude. And it's just odd. I mean, it's not odd. It's very Amber coded to take no accountability and blame the person sending the text as opposed to reading it, really taking it in and taking it for what it is, which says, this has been my decision. I don't want to have a relationship with you because of the things that you are doing online. And she's not sitting there saying that she's not doing those things, right? You don't have Amber sitting there being like, she's a liar, I'm not doing anything online. She knows that she's doing these things, and she's got to know how much that affects her daughter. This girl goes to school. Those kids probably make fun of her for all the like TikToks her mom does about her. It's embarrassing. So, but I hope that Amber's okay. Obviously, I don't think that the way she's handled Leah, her parenting, any of this situation very well. But I do hope that she's mentally okay and that she does have the support she needs, because she does need it. But yeah, I'm curious to see what'll happen from here, if we're going to get a Teen Mom spinoff with the kids, what we're going to have. It's funny because the women are all like 30 and the kids are all like 16, so it's so full circle. But I mean, I would continue to watch these women forever, to be honest. Okay, so let's move into some Summer House / Real Housewives of Beverly Hills news. Jesse fucking Solomon hooked up with Erika fucking Jayne after Watch What Happens Live. And the last time we heard about something as crazy as this, it was, a little Joe Bradley and a little Luann hookup. But this, I did not have on my bingo card. Okay, so I'm going to read you this article. And it's pretty much confirmed, too, by like page 6. So they met at a rehearsal earlier this year for NBC Upfronts, and they were seen getting cozy together at a private cocktail party the network threw for talent at the Mondrian Oriental, the source says. They spent a lot of time talking together on the couch, off to themselves, an insider said. It was the talk of the party, the source adds. You could definitely see there was a spark between them. And at first I'm like, what are they even talking about? Like, what could these two possibly have in common? But then I'm like, oh, right. They both have these beautiful voices. They both have, voices of an angel. They both love to sing. Like, maybe Erika Jayne is trying to help Jesse Solomon get a spot on Chicago on Broadway. Like, who knows? But I don't know. I think this is hilarious. It's like, good for you guys, I guess. We can't be mad at it. We can laugh at it. It's funny. That's all it is. It's all it is. It's just funny. Okay, and then we have a little bit of Selling Sunset news. So Crichelle Stous and Emma Hernan have been like best friends for quite a long time. Now, Emma Hernan has only been on Selling Sunset for the past, I want to say 2 or 3 seasons. And I don't believe that her and Crichelle knew each other before. I do believe that they met on the show, but that being said, they became fast friends. These two just like really bonded. I don't know what they specifically have in common, but you could really tell through their social media activity on the show. I mean, Emma defended Crichelle. I think it was against Bree. There was like an entire situation that I don't even think Crichelle was definitely necessarily in the right for, but Emma was just like very much a girl's girl about the situation. Again, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm remembering a situation where Emma was just like, standing on business when it came to supporting her girls, because that's just always been the kind of person that she is. And she's always had such a strong relationship with Crichelle and her partner, G Flip. So someone noticed recently, I guess, that Crichelle and Emma are just like not as tight, and Crichelle was asked about it. And Crichelle says, ask her about her MAGA BF who told me pronouns are dumb and that he likes to use the N-word. I just can't with that. Too old to allow that in, but love her from afar. And I was just like, whoa, like MAGA's one thing, but like her pronouns are dumb and he likes to use the N-word. Because again, Emma is very close with Crichelle's partner, G Flip, as well. Like, and, to say that her pronouns are dumb, that's so disrespectful to Crichelle and her character, Crichelle as a person, Crichelle and her marriage. That's just so odd that Emma would even entertain a partner like that. So apparently she has filmed with him before, but it's been cut. She's been with him for at least a year, and his name is Blake Davis. He's a billionaire that owns a yacht that's named Trust Fund. What a fucking loser. But I don't know. I mean, listen, we don't know Emma that well. Maybe she's the kind of person who's just like, my boyfriend has to be put above all else. Like maybe she's a girl's girl when she's single, but when she's in a relationship, she's all about that person, to the point where she's willing to accept anything and everything because nothing matters to her more than being in a relationship. I've met people like that. I've met people that probably would put up with shit like this too, because they will just like block out any of the noise because all that matters to them is like, I want to have a boyfriend. I want to get married. I want to have a boyfriend. I want to get married. But then when you're standing up there at your wedding, who's standing up there with you, right? Because you have no friends left because you're marrying this awful person. So I don't know what this is all about. I wonder if we're going to see any of this on the show. It's just weird for me to say that I don't feel like this guy is someone that Emma would date. It doesn't seem within her character, but then I also don't really know Emma, I guess. But the person that she purports herself to be on the show is just this really sweet, kind girl's girl. So it just feels very out of character for her, especially when she was so close with Crichelle. And like Crichelle is 100% right here. Like I wouldn't be able to like engage in a real friendship with someone who was dating someone like that either. I mean, like that's awful, but I guess we'll find out. Season 6? Season 6? Season 7? I don't know. Whatever the next season of Selling Sunset is. All right, well, that is the end of the episode for today, you guys. I hope you enjoyed it. If you want to follow me, you can do that on TikTok and on Instagram at the Bravo Investigator. You can buy my merch at hurrdatmedia.com. If you like the show, please leave me a 5-star review. And if you don't like the show, keep it to yourself. Love you, BBs. See you next time. Thank you for listening to the Bravo Investigator Podcast in partnership with Hurrdat Media. You can watch full-length videos on Hurrdat Entertainment's YouTube channel. Follow me on Instagram and TikTok at the Bravo Investigator. If you enjoy the show, please leave me a 5-star review. Love you, BBs. See you next time.
A Hurrdat Media Production.